Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a very special episode for you guys. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to bring a full review from this collection to you. I'm doing what I'm calling Areej Dore week on my channel. We're going to do an entire week of reviews and interviews from the man himself that basically I hadn't done on the channel before. So it started three days ago or so, whenever I did a review of Ocularia Blossom, which Adam actually sent me a month or two before the release and said, please don't say anything about it yet until it's released. And we talked about it a little bit on a live stream. If you go back, by the way, if you're new to the channel and you have not watched my live streams with Rush and Adam, there's now 4 of them. They're some of the best content I think I've ever put out on YouTube, just because the man, it's like having one of us. It's like having a true fragrance lover in a place of authority, and then coming back, you know, and telling us all about it. So his interviews, his reviews are absolutely, you know, some of the best stuff I've put out for YouTube, in my opinion. So I did Ocularia Blossom 3 days ago. 2 days ago, we did the interview himself. It's under the live stream. The logo sort of is like the inside of the box. By the way, these boxes are hand painted. They're absolutely stunning. They're magnetic. But we'll get into the presentation here in a little bit. And then yesterday, I reviewed a very underrated Areej Dore fragrance called Siberian Summer. And Siberian Summer, well, you can go check out that review if you want to learn more about it, but I absolutely love that stuff. It was fantastic. What a wear that was, getting to know it. And, you know, I know that these individual reviews aren't going to get the views that the lists are going to get or anything like that. I don't care. I think these are extremely important for FragCom. And whenever you try to look something like this up, you're not going to get many full reviews, all right? And first of all, before we really get into it, let me just show you guys this presentation. I am in love with this presentation. I think it is stunning. This V-shaped bottle, the almost like hand-painted aspect on the label, the hand-painted aspect around the outside, you know, the logo, everything, the attention to detail, and the sprayer. You can control the spray, whether you want to do just a little bit or a full spray. It's a beautiful presentation. So these are 22 ml sort of bespoke bottles for him, for this collection in particular. And so I have a lot to say about this. And, you know, first of all, it's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. So it's a little bit of a long weekend, and I've been doing a lot of thinking. And I had somebody tell me, you know, somebody reached out to me, and just a little off topic before we get into this, but still within the heart of the fragrance world. And they said, you know, hey, I've been going through some stuff lately. I've been struggling, and I love turning on your videos because I can just see sort of a smiling face and somebody that, you know, feels like talking to a friend. And that really touched me. I mean, that really touched the nerve of part of why I do this. Obviously, part of it is I'm a fragrance lover, but there's also a community part, and that's something Rich Mitch talked about a lot previously, that this fragrance community literally is that. It's a community. And so on this Memorial Day weekend, I'm really hoping we can take a step back and put some of the petty issues aside. Sometimes in the fragrance community, there's these little, you know, this person doesn't like that person, or there's, you know, all of these little beefs that go on. And so I hope we can put it aside, put everything aside, and just, you know, enjoy the fact that we're in a community surrounded by people that love the same things that we love, that are all fragrance lovers. We all have our different tastes, but really this is a community for us, for the fragrance lovers. So that just mentioned, somebody sent me a note on, really touched me. And, you know, it really brought back, exactly grounded the reason why I like to do these videos. And I have a conversational style in nature. That's just how I usually present this stuff. But just something that I wanted to share. And, you know, I hope these videos are helpful, especially if you're looking, if somebody is considering buying something like this, which on the secondary market now, I'm sure is going to be extremely expensive, because, you know, they were $450. Let's say they're sold out now, which I think they are. If they're not, I would say, if you can go grab a bottle and it will let you, Actually, I think I think you can still buy this, believe it or not. As of right now, I think you can still buy it. 11:46 a.m., Sunday, May 28th. I think there's still bottles available to check out. So, if you're interested, you can go grab one. Who knows how long that'll last, though, but it does look like it's actually still on the website, shockingly. Okay, so let's talk about the fragrance itself. Let me read you the little blurb, and then I'm going to give you what I feel, okay? This is sometimes a hard thing to do because this collection is literally one note. So it's like putting Indian oud on your skin, and that's it. It's not a perfume composition. It's not Indian oud with rose and jasmine and all of these notes, ambers and benzoin and oak moss. It's not any of that. It's just oud. That's it, oud. And so sometimes it can be hard to describe, but I'm going to try my best to describe it to you guys. So let me read you the blurb first. Again, beautiful box and presentation. It's a magnetic box. And so here's what it says. It says, the history of Indian oud. Natural oud spray, 22 mils. This perfume composition consists of 98% pure oud oils from the region of Nagaland and Manipur, distilled between the years 1970 and 1993. The top notes of royal, finest, sinking, vintage Indian oud. Wood vapors were infused into the composition by Russian Adam. Enjoy, learn, and appreciate the beauty of the history of Indian oud. Now, I have a theory, and I'm just going to state this as a theory of mine. If it ends up to be not true, it's just a theory. Okay, so don't take it and run with it as fact. But I have a theory that my theory is that the vintage royal grade oud that came between 1970 and 1993, which is some ouds that you can't find anymore. You can't find these type of ouds anymore unless you find a private collection of somebody who is selling it. And what bigger collector than the Sultan of Oman. The Sultan of Oman had a huge collection of fragrances, oils, houses made bespoke fragrances just for him, Henri Jacques, and they put his logo on it, the sort of Sultan of Oman crest on the front of the bottles. If you watch my last interview with Adam, the one we just did a couple days ago, the Russian Adam interview part 4, you will see that he actually shows a bottle at one point that he got directly from Sultan Qaboos bin Said's private collection. Okay, so Sultan Qaboos, after he passed away a couple years ago, and he was the one that founded the brand of Oman. So he'll forever be memorialized sort of in my head. But he had a huge collection, and they sold it off to collectors and stuff. But you could go buy stuff there. If you had the money, you could go buy stuff that he had. And some of the stuff that was being sold were these very rare vintage oud oils. And so when some other brands, like for example, if you've ever seen Ensar do a Sultan Qaboos bin Said, oud oil creation, they advertise it, they put the crest on the front, and they charge 4 times the price. And one of the things that I loved about Russian Adam from the very beginning, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm saying it's a theory, is that he wants to bring fragrances to as many people as possible. Yes, obviously he has to make money to continue to live, but for him, I think it's really about sharing the art with the world. That's the way that I see him as a man. That's the way I think he wants to come off to the rest of the world. And, you can see fragrances that he does that are under $100, and you can see some of the most rarest, finest, type fragrances being released that are very expensive. But when you go look at that collection that Ensar did, and I like Ensar, okay? Right hand to God, I do. I actually own 2 full Ensar bottles. They're both EO1. That's my favorite Ensar, but I haven't tried EO3 or EO4 yet, but I want to one day. And I wouldn't mind having bottles of EO2 and stuff like that, but the problem is they're extremely expensive. Ensars are through the roof expensive. And if you go try to find, like, for example, this, Sultan grade, I forgot what the name of the collection that he did, but it was literally based on oud from Sultan Qaboos bin Said's personal collection. It's 2, 3, 4 times the price of this. So if my theory is correct, this is an absolute steal. I know it's hard to imagine a $450 bottle for 22 mils being a steal, but no one's doing stuff like this. I mean, if you wanted to do this for the world, okay, like if you wanted to do a collection where you could just go to Macy's and buy this, you'd have to be a billionaire. It would be impossible. There's not enough oud out there. It's turning into the fact that it's becoming so rare, and you know the quality of these vintage ouds in a fragrance like this, you have to find from old collections that someone is selling off. It's kind of like buying vintage perfume. How are you going to find an old bottle of Charles of the Ritz opium? You have to find it from a collection that's being broken apart, right? That's sort of how it is here. And so that's my theory. When on the box it says royal and vintage, I went, you know what? I wonder if there's some connection to Sultan Qaboos bin Said. Just a theory, just a hypothesis. Do not shoot the messenger if it ends up not being true. But if it is true, what an absolute steal you're getting here. And my theory is that it's true. So how does it smell like? Well, if you know anything about Indian oud, you know that it's known for one thing, and that's that animalic funk, okay? That animalic, dirty funk that you can imagine. This sort of cheesy, you know, how would you describe it? Almost turpentine-like, turpentinic. It has this dirty fertilizer smell. You know, it's May, so they're planting flowers here. There's a park right across the street from my house. I can actually see it right here from my window on the second floor, and they plant flowers, you know, like the neighborhood does or whatever. And whenever they plant the flowers, they always put like fresh fertilizer. And I like to run around this park because, you know, one lap around is almost exactly a quarter of a mile. So, you know, one lap around is about a quarter of a mile. So 4 laps makes about a mile. So it's an easy way to judge how long I've been running. Plus I'm close to the house, that kind of thing. And so when I run past, they do those flowers, and you can smell sort of the fertilizer chips that they put in the ground, that, you know, slightly funky animalic fertilizer, right? Imagine, remember running by a fresh garden and you get that fertilizer hit? That's a little bit of this sort of barnyard smell. Now, imagine you are literally standing in a barn, but the barn is freshly built, okay? So the wood is freshly cut with saws. The red paint on the barn is freshly applied, and the animals have been put in there, and a night or two has gone by and the stalls haven't been cleaned, right? And you get that blend of fresher wood with, you know, this turpentine-like paint. Some would say paint thinner even, with this sort of barnyard, okay, aspect to it, like the animals on the inside of the barn. The smell is controversial to some, as I think it's off-putting at first. If it can be. If you've never smelled this, if you're not a fragrance lover, and I spray this for you, okay, you're going to go, whoa, what in the world? Like, who the hell would want to wear that? Are you insane? Do you need to be checked into a mental hospital, right? That's usually the people's response in the West if you've never smelled true barnyard Indian oud. I would say for me, now that I know, you know, what proper barnyard Indian oud is supposed to smell like, for me, it's now a comforting smell. You know, when I spray this, I like to wear stuff like this to bed now. So I'm wearing it as my scent of the day today because I was going to do this review. But this for me, this collection for me, I think will mostly be used as after I wear my fragrances. I'll come at the end of the night and I'll spray one of these. And it's just almost like it just puts the mind at ease. It numbs the mind, if that makes sense. And here's one thing most people don't understand. So one of the reasons Indian oud is as barnyard as it is, one of the reasons it has that barnyard-like smell is they soak the oud beforehand, which leads to this fermentation. Okay, so it leads to this bacteria process being implemented with the wood. And it's a very similar process actually to the creation, if you've ever heard of kombucha tea, Look up kombucha tea if you've never heard of it before. Kombucha. Kombucha tea is basically like a fermented tea made with sugar, bacteria, and yeast. And to make the drink, bacteria and yeast must first grow together to basically form this culture. It's a very similar idea when fermenting oud. Okay, that's the process in India. They've been doing it for millennia. Okay, in India. And kombucha tea basically forms this sweet and sour vinegar-like smell. Okay, so pay attention to sort of the words that I'm using here, because there are some similarities to what you're smelling here. So there's a sweet and sour smell, vinegar-like smell. But when a similar process is done with oud, it gives off almost this yeasty wood smell. Imagine yeasty wood, okay, which many associate with barnyard oud. So it's sort of this very pungent, very strong, very powerful note, characterized by those fertilizer chips like I mentioned earlier. And some would even say a fecal note. Okay, now in perfume, fecal isn't always a bad thing. And again, my non-fragrance lovers, if you ever watch this, you're probably going to go, Ramsey has completely lost the plot. He is out of his mind. Fecal notes in perfume, but it's true. That may sound crazy again to some, but some of the most famous ingredients in perfume actually can have a little bit of a fecal tilt to them. So think of things like civet. I think of civet as more pissy, but some could say slightly fecal. Castoreum, hyrax, musks even. Or the one that I think really blows people away is something like jasmine. Jasmine has something called indols, and indols and jasmine can be very indolic, and they can smell fecal in high quantities of real indolic jasmine. It starts to become hard to disassociate it from that fecal smell. In small quantities, it adds a beauty to a fragrance. Jasmine adds this extreme beauty to a fragrance, this alluring, almost narcotic beauty. But in larger doses, your nose can start to associate it with this fecal-like smell. Which, if there's any biologists in the room that want to go back and trace why we associate, certain smells with certain things, be my guest. But just know that there is this association with fecal-like smells. And so the fermented oud note is central to, it's the central nerve system of Indian oud. And this fragrance absolutely nails it for me. I think that this is the best example I have ever smelled in my life of an Indian oud fragrance done in this style. It is literally, to me, the history of Indian oud is literally a reference of Indian oud. It's a reference. It's what you put in the book. If you have a dictionary of fragrances and you wanted to put Indian oud, this is the picture that goes next to it for me. Now, disclaimer. Before the last year or so, year and a half, obviously I knew oud like most Westerners know oud. So that would be Tom Ford's Oud Wood, Versace Pour Homme Oud Noir. I've smelled Roja's oud. Now I've smelled millions of oud fragrances, it feels like. But before Adam really started to introduce me to the oud oils themselves, I had no extra experience. So there are people out there that have decades and decades of experience with oud. For the most part, I'm relatively a newcomer, but I've had a chance to smell a lot, and I've had a chance to grow a lot thanks to the people in the community. And so keep that in mind. I mean, I'm not holding myself out here as some sort of expert. This is just what I smell. And so that sour, funky, sort of fermented wood note goes on and on into the dry down, hours into the dry down. I put this on at 8 o'clock. And it is noon, and I can still smell that sour, funky, fermented wood note. It just goes on and on and on into the dry down. And this fragrance does change, though. I will tell you that. Even though it's one note, basically, it's this Indian oud note, there is sort of a journey with the fragrance. And one thing that I will tell you is that this is one of the best examples of Indian oud to me, because of not just how perfectly that fermented wood note is done, not how crystal clear you can pick it out. It's a reference in that aspect, but also there's this smoothness to the fragrance as it continues to go on. And that's where, in my head, I'm thinking that this is some special, oud wood that we're smelling. Whenever they cut into the tree and it gets to the resonated part, they call that oleo resin. The oud itself that's used in this composition, to me, smells special. It smells like a special blend, okay? Because most funky ouds have this unclean aspect. Think this unwashed, sort of harsh animalic aspect that can be harsh and like a punch in the face, okay? Or a punch in the gut. It can almost, bowl you over. And the history of oud has this unrivaled sort of, the history of Indian oud has this unrivaled sort of smoothness to it, okay? And that smoothness literally makes me swoon. I love the smoothness in the fragrance, that woody smoothness, backbone, and to me, that makes it wearable. It makes it more wearable, and it also makes it easier picking out notes as the fragrance continues to dry. This is a 20-hour fragrance. I mean, all of these, even the Kinam one, which is lighter, and there are some other notes I think added in there, this iris, or, in Kinam. That's the only one I think that has a little more added to it to create that Kinam-like accord. But even that Kinam one lasts on my skin forever. I mean, clear as day. As a fragrance lover, you can appreciate this all day long, all day. And it makes picking out the notes in the composition easier. This very silky, think of silkworm, this silky smoothness. And when you take that silky smoothness and you contrast it with sort of the animalic funk, it really started getting me thinking about something Russian Adam told me once. He said that oud is basically like a struggle for life. And what he means by that is that the tree is literally infected. So you think about that. It is fighting for its survival. It's fighting for its life. We want the tree to be infected so that it can produce this beautiful, almost like a butterfly, almost like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. This metamorphosis happens inside of the oud tree. And it's a struggle for life. And so, just like if you or me were to get infected, our immune system would fight for our survival. If you've seen, a wildebeest or a buffalo being dragged down by a lion, they don't just lay down. They fight, right? It's a fight for survival. It's just everything fights for survival on this earth. And we're basically smelling years and years of that battle. Bottled is basically what it is. So we're smelling years and years of that battle bottled into this right here. This is years and years of the battle fought by these oud trees. They're battle hardened. The soul of the oud tree is literally in this bottle, is the way that I like to think about it, if you will. And now, just because I focused on the fermented note, okay, that animalic funk that is so known for Indian oud fermentation, the smoothness of this fragrance also allows you to pick out all other kind of nuances, which everyone gets something different that I've talked to. Never did I think one note would have such complexity to it, and it does. It has extreme complexity. And as you continue, so basically imagine this. Imagine a slight tint of this cherry plum-like fruitiness mixed with, as the hours go by, you get more and more of this cherry fruitiness from the oud. It is extremely rare, very rare, to have this fruitiness come directly from the oud itself. Normally, it's synthetically injected into the fragrance by other methods. But to have it naturally come from the oud is something that you usually do not find. And this cherryness, this sort of cherry berry fruitiness, whatever you want to call it, plum-like fruitiness, wine-like cherry. It's like a cherry wine smell to me. So it's just naturally coming from the oud. And, you know, so imagine this. Imagine that as you continue on this journey that you have smelling this fragrance, you're eating your cherries, okay? Cherries have a pit, you're eating your cherries, you're spitting the pit out onto the ground, and you're walking in the forest of some part of you're exploring. You're an explorer. You're going on a journey yourself, an adventure. And it starts to rain. And since you are a go with the flow kind of guy or gal, you are walking by this old wooden house with your traveling partner, and it's you decide to take refuge in it. It's starting to sprinkle. It's not raining hard, but it's starting to sprinkle, and you seek refuge in this old wooden house that is dilapidated and creaky. When you walk in, everything creaks, but inside of this wooden house is a wooden chest. And the wooden chest is clearly high quality, extremely high quality, a chest made for a king or a sultan, if you will. This is the image, okay, of the history of Indian oud to me. And inside of that chest is that, again, looks like it's made for a sultan, like a chest out of a fairy tale, okay, is filled with old priceless books. And inside, have you ever been inside of an old library? Like my grandmother, for example, had this chest of books in her attic I'm thinking about. Makes me sad because she passed away within the last couple years, and she was up in New York. I'm in Texas. I never got a chance to go grab some of the stuff out of her house because there was some stuff there that I remember as a kid, obviously, playing with that just lasted forever. She lived by herself most of my life. My grandfather passed away when I was very young. And so, this memory of these old books, okay, just imagine these old books that have been enclosed in wood, or this old library smell, or maybe like this attic, that you have to take these creaky old stairs to get up to, and it's an old attic where the house was made 100 plus years ago, that kind of thing, right? And chest out of a fairy tale. You open it up, and it's filled with priceless books. Books where you're going to read about all kind of things the authors want to imprint in your mind, but they're going to write stories about life and death, right? You can read those stories, but you are literally wearing life and death on your skin, as far as I'm concerned. You're smelling it in the air. You're interpreting the story of what the oud tree is giving you yourself. That's the beauty of this. It's every time I spray History of Indian Oud on, I go back and say, this is my favorite. Even though I said Chinese oud is my favorite because it has that animalic funk, this is my favorite. And then I wear Chinese oud and I say, you know what, Chinese oud's my favorite. And then Kinam oud starts coming up, and it's like, how do you pick amongst a collection so brilliant? Even the one that was $160 or whatever, the Indonesian oud, it's still available too on the website, by the way, as of right now. Even the one that's $160, you cannot find oud of that quality for $160. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. And if you want more of kind of an overview of what I think about this collection, I have a live stream up, and on that live stream, we go through all of them. I smell them for the very first time. That's the very first time I get to smell them all. So yes, I think that this is a touching, moving, like I said, this is a comforting fragrance for me because of where I'm at in my journey, thanks to sort of the knowledge that Adam has sort of imparted on me, what he's passed along. Because remember, the mission statement of Areej Dore is to show the world what these ingredients truly smell like. Not the synthetic compounds that Givaudan made, not the synthetic compounds that IFF or Robertet or Simrise or Maine make. These huge oil conglomerates, that's probably what you've smelled if you think of oud. This is different. This is the soul of a tree in the bottle. Exactly that. It is brilliant. It's beautiful. And I think for someone who has never experienced real oud, that this is a great way to start. You will not get a better education than this from the man himself, from Russian Adam himself. So that's my take on it. I know now, as an oud lover, it's easy for me to say these things. You may come at this from an outsider, spray this and go, oh my God, wait. Take time with it, give it time, spray it before bed every week or two, come back to it in a month, spray it again. I promise you, you will fall in love with this fragrance. It is, pretty much this entire collection is hard not to fall in love with because it strikes the exact nerve of the mission statement of Areej Dore to bring these beautiful materials which we're losing in the world to the population. And this does that. I mean, it does exactly that. And to see, for me as an outsider, I know it made Adam proud, but to see the response to this, to see how many people were interested in this History of Oud collection, it really made me feel like more and more people are waking up to what some of these houses are feeding us that is just not true. These mainstream houses, and they want to smell the real thing. They want to experience the real thing. And so this is a way to do it. If you're going to give Fragrance Du Bois or Roja Dove or, MFK or any of these houses, pick your poison. Creed. You're going to give these houses $500. Don't. Give it to Adam. Try this. And you'll see the difference. So that's my take on it. I think this collection is, for me, the mountaintop of oud. Literally, if you turn this upside down, it is the mountaintop for me of oud. This is the peak, and I will cherish these. I will absolutely cherish these. So that's my take on the history of Indian oud. If you've had a chance to smell it, I know people are still receiving their bottles. Do let me know. If you've had a chance to smell any from the collection, let me know. Let me know what you think about Russian Adam and his interview with me recently. So I appreciate everyone watching very much. Thank you, everybody, and more Areej Dore videos as the week goes on to come. Cheers, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.